Okay, perfect. So we are going to get started. First and foremost, thank you all so much for coming today. I hope you find today as valuable as what we found in Austin. Before we start with the market update, there's a few sites I want to bring to your attention so you have them as resources. The first one is this Buyer and Seller Agent Tools to Thrive. KWRI released this website for us at MegaCamp, and it's at thrive.kw.com. We posted it in the internal page. But there is the open house video regarding the NAR settlement back in June. So when they went through and explained everything, all of this is here for you to look at. Then they have some FAQ sheets, fact sheets for buyers and sellers to have. And then we have different videos. So as you can see, there's 15 plus videos of top agents, Carrie being one of them, Jen being one of them out of our market center, demonstrating the conversations you can have. So for example, it could be compensation discussions, buyer strategy, mastering the process, the truth about the rules change. All of this is available to you for free. And the best thing about this, that this is a website that can be shared with anybody. So let's say you were in a transaction with an agent that maybe wasn't here, or maybe that still has questions regarding the lawsuit. Feel free to send this to them as a resource as well.
What was it called again?
It's thrive.kw.com /agent sources. It's also the internal page as well. The second one, oh, where did it go? I don't know where that went. Okay. The second one is, how many of you heard of Mike's Notes? So Mike's Notes, Mike Hillary is an RTT out of the Mid-American, and he takes notes for every session at MegaCamp. So if you ever miss a family reunion or MegaCamp, if you go to mikesnotes.net, here are all of his notes from all of MegaCamp, CEO Summit, the Mastery event, the panel breakout. So if you were wanting any notes in the future, mikesnotes.net. The last thing, and the screen went away, in Command, there is all of the market slides that we're about to cover, along with all of the one-page sheets. So at any point in time, if one of our panelists is up here talking about a speaker they heard and the model they're running, they already have a one-page sheet of that whole play. And so we'll share those out for all of you to have, whether it's regarding social media, getting more listings, buyer conversations, all of that is for you all. Okay, perfect. So for our market update, Trey, you ready?
Yep.
Trey is going to give us a market update based on what Gary, Jay, and Jason and Ruben had talked about.
Yes, these are not my numbers. These are not my opinions. I'll give you some opinions, but I'm simply translating what they have said. How many people are at MegaCamp that are in here? Okay, if I get something wrong, don't call me out. We'll talk about it after. So market update, a couple things real quick. We're gonna go over the economy as a whole, and then we're gonna talk about the housing market. This is all national statistics. None of these are local, so keep that in mind. And then what was really cool that they did this year was they gave actually 3 scenarios for what could come next year in 2025. Has anybody heard that we might be going into a recession? Yeah, okay. We're gonna see that we've actually been in one for a little while already. Again, this is KW's numbers. They got it. This is not my stuff, and they probably covered their butts in here as well. So US economy, how much time do we have?
I'll tell you your stuff.
Okay, yikes. No questions.
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, cool. So GDP, this is the cost of goods with inflation factored in. So you can see we're right at our projected number for 2024 is going to match about what last year was. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but one thing that I do want to say, and in a lot of these slides, you can see that we're projected to be the same as last year. We haven't really had that in any other years past for the past 30 or 40 years. And it's kind of interesting because that shows up a few more times throughout this.
And GDP is gross domestic product, which calculates the spending that's happening. So the ideal zone is 2.5% of what they're looking at.
Yeah, about the cost of goods for what we have in our economy in this country. Recession probability. So this is super, super scary, and the world's probably going to end after 2024. You see how high we are right here. The probability of a recession, I probably wasn't supposed to say that. The probability of a recession is very, very high right now. And that's due to a bunch of factors that go into this, and we're going to see all of that. But you can see, I'm not sure who actually does this and who the people are, but you can see for those of you that remember specific recessions, they're pretty on track with this. So the likelihood that we're going into a recession is there. It's just a matter of how bad is it really? And that's the whole gist that we talked about is what are we coming down on? How are we gonna land in this recession? How bad is it? Is it 2008 or are we gonna land a little bit softer? So unemployment still looks really, really good. That's where they want it to be. They want it to be under 5, and under 4 is starting to get where it's like, okay, we have everybody working, everybody's making money. And what happens when people make money? We spend it, right? Okay, that's what inflation is all about, is people have money and they're gonna keep spending it. Our unemployment is really, really good. And again, you see that there, it's on track for the year before. We don't have the projected number there, but we've got kind of 2 years in a row of the same thing. Monthly, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on monthly because that breaks it down super micro and I wanna look at the macro stuff. So unemployment versus job openings, this is super, super interesting. And this is gonna come up again. We see what happened in 2020. Does anybody remember? Did we have a big event then? COVID, right? Cool. So everybody gets laid off, unemployment goes way up, and then we have a little dip in job openings. Here's the thing that I took away from all of this. Our unemployment is super, super low, which means people have money, right? Prices of goods are going up, but we had this increase in job openings. So what happened with COVID? Did everybody keep working the same jobs or did we have to create new jobs? We had to create new jobs, right? In order to do new things. So we've had super low employment and we have had all of these jobs created. Has anybody heard a parent or grandparent or great grandparent say, man, people just don't want to work anymore? Right? I don't want to go do the jobs that we had 40 years ago because it's manual labor and it's hard and my hands are soft. And I don't want to get bruises or blisters. We have new jobs that we can go do now, right? And the younger generations that are coming up, they don't have to go work 80-hour weeks in the hot sun. We have other stuff that we can do from home. I think it's super interesting. We have this peak in job openings, even though unemployment has been super low. Inflation. This is really the same that we saw after family reunion. Inflation is down to about 2.7 to 2.9 right now. There's a couple different ways that they measure it. They would love for it to be about 2. Remember that for when we look at home prices also, because that's going to be an interesting fact. Monthly over the past few years, that's where we're at. You guys have seen this stuff before. Hope you're not investing in smartphones or cars right now. What this is talking about the prices of goods and how quickly they're falling. Smartphones are falling, the prices are falling quicker than anything else. And then there's cars and trucks, which is good for those of us that need a new truck. Fastest rising prices, motor vehicles, admissions, sporting events, healthcare. And then we've got emissions down here again, which is really, really interesting. We think of what happened during COVID times. We all had to stay home. We couldn't go do anything. So those ticket prices went way down. People are now out and about again around other people. So those prices are going back up. Now to what we really care about. Home sales. So this is the number of homes sold on a yearly basis. And everything's doom and gloom, but look at this. They're projecting that we have a little bit of an increase from last year. And they're actually projecting that we are going to have an even better year in 2025 as far as the number of homes that are actually sold. Monthly, again, we see a little bit of a trend there, kind of, sort of, not really. Again, we're not going super micro here. Home prices, we're still well above what the 4% annual trend is, right? And we're going to talk about the amount of money that we are making, and the amount of money that we're making as realtors is going to continue to go up. Something to keep in mind that I thought was a cool stat that, and a really more of an idea that we don't talk about a ton. We just talked about the target inflation rate, which is what? 2%, right? Okay, it's 2%. 2% is what they're shooting for our inflation, and they consider that a healthy rise in prices. What is the average rise in real estate values? 4. Thank you, Brian. Which means the price of homes is going to continue to go up faster than the price of other goods. So we're going to continue to make more money, which is good or bad? Good. Thank you. Home prices monthly. So we will look at this a little bit. You guys see everybody here, spring and summer is the time to sell a house. Our prices have gone up from January to June. This shows why more people want to sell their houses in there because they hear that they're going to get more money. Inventory on a monthly basis. They didn't do this on a yearly basis, which I wish they would have. We're feeling this right now. Mike, how many active listings do we have right now? Where is he?
Monday morning was 2011 in GSBOR.
What did we start off the year at? 1,200? 1,300, something like that. So we're seeing the rise in inventory right now, and that's because houses are sitting on the market longer, which is going to slow the rate at which real estate's going to appreciate at. New home starts. Is Drew in here or any other builders? No builders? Okay, cool. So this is the long-term average, the blue dotted line, as far as how many homes are being built on a yearly basis. This is how many homes are being started, not how many homes are being sold. Go ahead, Mike.
So January, we had 1,366 active listings.
Mm-hmm.
This month, last year, we had 1,310.
Yeah.
So right now, last year was the same as our January, so we're way past that.
We kind of staggered there for that past 12 months, starting in January, and now we're really starting to see that incline in inventory. So new home starts, again, Dan's in here. Dan, 2008 was a good time to be a builder. Is that correct?
If you wanted to hold inventory, it was a great time.
Perfect, cool. So we see this massive drop off in new home starts because of the crash in 2008. What they're talking about is, and this is, so it says 1,022, but this is in thousands. So that's actually 1 million new home starts that have gone on in 2024 is what they're projecting. What they talked about is, and what they've been talking about for a few years, as a nation, we should be starting about 4 million new homes a year in order to catch up to the inventory level that we should be at and the inventory that we lost from this time period. We're only building 1 million houses this year. So we're still way off from where these guys should be right now. However, our resale inventory is climbing back up. So we're seeing our inventory as a whole climb back up, even though we haven't seen a major increase in new home starts. New home sales and builder confidence. I don't know. Most people in construction have a negative attitude, in my opinion, anyway. So it doesn't mean anything for this to be low. I say that jokingly for anybody that's actually in construction or any of that stuff. New home sales. So this is actually the number of new homes that sold. So we are building 1 million new homes this year, and we're going to sell about 656,000. So inventory is going up. 5 minutes. Okay. Mortgage rates. What are mortgage rates right now? This was about a month old. For you guys that are here today, what can you promise me that I'm going to get?
Promise you?
Yeah. 6.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Conservatively.
Okay, cool. And that's about what they said. So this was just a touch higher than that whenever they put this report out. We've gone way up from where we are here. The reports are that they're dropping. Is that true? That's kind of the sentiment that rates should be dropping over the next year, year and a half?
Absolutely.
Okay, down to 3?
Probably not.
Okay, cool. Mortgage rates monthly, again, we know what happened there. We felt that. So this was really, really interesting, and I would love to have them put out a few more stats on this, but they're saying that affordability is up. And what affordability is your principal and your interest payment to the bank compared to what your household income is. So we get down here, people aren't making a whole lot of money, and we see this little dip in 2020. People get laid off, but then we start working again and we go right back up. So they didn't touch on this as much as I wish they would have to explain why affordability is so much more right now. However, it shows that we are making, the general consensus is we're making more money and the housing, I mean, we haven't seen prices drop that much. So we're just making more money really is what we're talking about there. Size per agent. This is really, really cool. And we're all going to give ourselves a pat on the back. So we see, and we can see the trends as far as when the real estate market has ebbed and flowed a little bit, as far as how many agents are in the business and how many agents are doing what number of deals. So statistically speaking, again, this is nationally, we're doing about 5.6 transactions per agent. So that means all of the agents in this room, we're averaging about 5.6. And that's nationally, and that sticks pretty much locally as well. we went and looked at our broker metrics and the breakdown of our multi-year trends. Our office last year, again, this is nationally, 5.3 sites per agent. Last year, our office, Greater Springfield Keller Williams, did 9.9 sites per agent. Double of what the market
That's a
average
woo
is.
woo.
How cool is that? Go ahead.
Woo woo.
Oh, I think you said.
I said that's a woo woo.
Okay, we're very fortunate. We have some super high producing agents in this office and high producing teams. That just shows, what that says to me is this is the place to be. If you want to be around the people that are continuing to thrive through this changing market, you need to be around the office of the agents that are doing more deals than that. We are not average. In fact, we are double average. So everybody give yourself a round of applause for that. Market, how much time? I gotta blow? Okay, market volume, blah, 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 we're making more money.
Go back to that really quick.
Okay,
No,
which one? This one?
this one.
Okay,
This is an important
want-
stat to know when you're talking to your clients and you just have in general. 76% of mortgages have a rate of 5% or less. So when you're talking to your clients about, does refinance look like a possibility, you just need to understand where their rates are at. And it shows the breakout of the pie chart of where their percent of their interest rate may be in that.
and this is, we've talked about this for the past 2 years, but there's a lot of people out there who have a house that they're fine with and they can live in and it works for their family and they have an interest rate that's lower than what it is right now. Moving and buying a new house doesn't solve a monthly payment issue for them. Why this is so important for us is it tells us who do we need to be really, really focused on and talking to. There's still transactions happening. We saw that. There's more transactioning happening this year than there were last year. We just have to go find who are the motivated, right? And who are the people that need to move right now and who can we service and who can we help? Go figure out who that population is and go be talking to them. Same thing here. I want to get to the last one. So this is, I'm gonna do probably a horrible job explaining this. However, they came up with 3 scenarios that they are expecting for 2025. And in my opinion, they all look really, really positive as long as you can stay in the business for the next 3, 4, 5 years, which all of us can. Economic scenario number 1, we don't have a recession. And this comes about because we were able to raise interest rates to slow the economy to a healthy, stable, period, I guess you would say. And then we're able to start lowering our interest rates to where the real estate market, we'd start getting those first-time home buyers back in. Are you guys seeing the first-time home buyers starting to trickle back in a little bit? We're getting that now because we're able to start lowering these rates and we can avoid a recession. And what the government's whole job is to keep us from going like this. Nobody's ever done this in their real estate venture, have they? Good. That's the job of the government, is to keep our economy from having these huge peaks and valleys. Theoretically, if we can balance everything out and they can stabilize everything, we really don't have a recession. I don't think that that's the case. That's my opinion. But we're going to increase the number of home sales by lowering the interest rates because everything's able to stabilize a little bit. What that would mean is next year, unemployment stays below 5, meaning people are still working and they're still making money. Our interest rates fall a little bit, so as people are still making money, they have the money to go buy a new house, and interest rates are a little bit better than they were a year and a half ago. Home sales go up to about 4.5 million. We're going to be at about 4.1 this year. So we see an increase in the number of homes sold. Scenario number 2, we have a normal recession. Unemployment goes up to 6 to 8%, meaning less people are working and they're making less money. So we need to stimulate the economy. So we lower interest rates in order to incentivize the people who are making money to go spend the money. So we have our economy is moving a little bit. Home sales go to 5 million. That sounds awesome, right? So even if we do have that little recession, home sales go up. For us, having the positive attitudes that we have, we're still going to be able to work and make money. Number 3, they talked a lot about the commercial real estate world having a big effect on this. We have a lot of turnover with those 5-1 ARM loans that a lot of people got to go buy rental properties and investment properties and all of that stuff. That's going to be rolling over to where they're going to have a new interest rate. And instead of that 3% that we got 3 or 4 years ago, they're now going to have a 6 or 7% interest rate, which is going to cause cash flow issues. This is a big recession. The banking world collapses in some form or fashion. Unemployment goes up to 8 to 10%, which means people are not working and they're not making money. And even though they're gonna try to stimulate the economy and lower interest rates to 3 or 4%, there's still not gonna be people buying houses because they're not making money and we go down to 4 million or less homes sold in 2025. This is drastic and this is dramatic in my opinion. I don't think that we hit this point because there's nothing that's super unstable right now. They're doing a pretty good job of keeping everything balanced. The good news about that, and then I'll be done and get out of here, is we go down to 4 million homes sold or less and interest rates go to 3 or 4%, and they're gonna stay there for a few years. And if we can sustain and make it through that business on the other side of that, you hear of how many people made money in the 2008 era by buying houses at a discount and investing and doing those things. We're gonna be on the other side and it's gonna be a great opportunity to be an investor. So, okay, I got through it. I went over, sorry.
Does anybody have a couple of questions? Any questions for Trey? Lena, you wanna bring those chairs up? No? Oh, Mike?
Yes.
The one thing, sorry, it's echoing because I'm monitoring Zoom also. The one thing I've never heard them talk about is they say we're good on good employment. But how many people now have 2 or 3 jobs? That's the thing that I haven't heard them. So I don't know if that's skewing the employment amount right now and how many people have an Uber besides their normal job or that kind of thing. So I'm curious how that'll make things happen.
Well, yeah, and back to the point of we hear all of our grandparents and great grandparents say, well, these kids just don't want to work anymore. Well, there's so many other options out there, like an Uber that you can go do for 6 hours, and then you can go do Grubhub, and then you can go do whatever else, and you can do all this stuff from your computer. And yes, I was talking to a buddy of mine that actually lived in Austin, and he said that you were out of the norm if you only had one job. In our world here, you're weird if you have more than one job, right? Because you're working extra hard and you're a workaholic and blah, 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 and all that stuff. It's normal for people in other parts of the country to have more than one job. Jim.
Did they mention at all $35 trillion in debt and climbing every day? Not a word about that?
Not a word. Other than commercial debt, no.
Yeah, I'm no, it's federal debt. I'm not talking about the people like you and I, which have a little bit of debt. I'm talking about the government.
They didn't talk anything about that.
They didn't talk a lot about like the jobs and like having multiple jobs, because I do think that that's a big deal, but the inflation has gone so high out of control because, you know, the really young generation, they don't understand the value of the dollar. And so like, they're the ones that are throwing inflation with, you know, all of the Louis Vuittons and like shoes and stuff like that. Like those types of spending is what is still just like 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, 100%. And they didn't talk about, that's a great point. They didn't talk about this. But the amount of cash that we as an average American have in the bank is still like the lowest it's ever been. Like we don't have cash in the bank and our consumer debt's still way high. So people get credit cards, rack up more than they actually make. And we're not living Dave Ramsey's principles very well is what we're doing. So great thought. Thank you for sharing that.
I have a
Really quick, but while you ask if Claire, Monica, and Amy want to go ahead and start coming up so we can maximize our
So
time.
obviously their depression was not even in the mix, like that's not even in the conversation that a depression is actually coming.
Other than that third scenario,
Yeah.
which lasts, again, it's a 2008
That's
scenario.
still not depression.
Which lasts 3 or 4 years. Now, the effects of it last much longer than 2 or 3 years, but from a home value point, it lasts 2 or 3 years.
Did they say which one was most likely, or they just said this is what we have to write out and wait?
Second one, yeah, small recession.
Gary
and-
had said if you're, right now, we're experiencing as bad as it's going to get. So if you're feeling great, congratulations.
Yeah. Now, that's from the housing, that's from the
Spent all
real
my money,
estate.
that's not great.
And that's from the real estate. Well, the other
My
thing
money's
real quick,
gone.
and I will be done, is that the economy as a whole follows the real estate market. And so we're the ones that will lead, and we see that in every other area of life. We saw this dip and we felt this dip, and we'll be the ones that kind of pull out of it. So the rest of the economy as a whole are still lagging a little bit compared to where we're at. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so we have Claire, Monica, and Amy, and just remember, if there's any chatter going on, all the speakers can hear you and anybody on internet world can. And Monica will probably also mention, if you want Monica's notes, you can scan this QR code and she's put all of her notes right here for y'all. If you want access to
Get you
Monica's.
Monica?
I know.
You just have to request.
It's like she's their director of operations or something. Sorry, Wes. Okay. So the first question, and I'll start with you, Amy. What was your biggest aha moment from Mega Camp? And how do you plan to implement the insight into your business strategy moving forward?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Rachel, because that's the only thing I wrote down.
Love that. Okay.
So I think my overall arching theme that I walked away with was that concept that they were talking about, thrive versus survive. So I think when we first kind of went into this, I had more of a survive mentality. If I can just ride this out, I'll be okay. Well, now I think we're figuring out like, this is not a write it out situation. Like this is gonna be longer term than we initially thought. And I don't know about you, but I need income. So I can't just write it out. Like I have to figure out how to thrive in this market. So one of the things you're gonna have to do is go out there and get the business. So just like Trey was saying, look for those people that have to move. People still have to move. But the people who just want to move because they want the new house, they want something different, those people, they're not gonna move right now. There's too many other factors involved. So you've got to go out into the marketplace and find the people that have to move. And if you can survive, or if you can thrive in this market, then you know you're going to create the skills needed to create a much bigger business in the future than what you've had before. And that's the thing that you've got to do now is you've got to figure out where you're going to go and get your skills. So the 2020 to 2022 market that we were in, where people were knocking on the door and calling you and saying, hey, we want to move. They're not going to do that. You have to go find them. You have to learn the skills. You have to learn the conversations, and you have to know how to get the business and get it to close. Because that's the thing that I've also been experiencing. Even the business I'm getting, it's not all closing. So how do we create that success for our clients all the way to the closing table?
Awesome. Thank you. Monica.
Well, I didn't know you were asking me questions today, but I am very prepared. Just kidding.
I emailed them to you.
I didn't read it.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk to you guys very operationally because all of us are agents and all of our agent businesses have an operations foundation. And so we've heard a lot about value to the extent that we probably all want to grow up. However, when I looked at that, if value has to be both appreciated and appreciating, everything tied back to that for me. So when I looked at that, it was auditing our customer experience and saying, is our value appreciated and is it appreciating? And then when we take that a little bit further, how is it speed to value for both our agents and our clients instead of speed to lead? And so what is the value we're providing to our agents? What is the value we're providing to our customers? And I'm sure we've all been in that place where we've said, I mean, this transaction didn't go great, but I did this, this, and this for them, and it still wasn't appreciated. It's not up to us to determine what they appreciate. It's really up to them. And so really going back in and saying, does our customer experience and the value that we're providing, both to who we've recruited, who's on our team, and to our clients, is it appreciated? Is it appreciating? How does that look for us? And then really, does it match the market we're in? Because we're in a very different market than we've been in. And most of what we're doing, even on our team, I know that our checklists don't necessarily match the market we're in. We've not really adjusted, even though we adjusted the conversations, did we adjust the processes and the systems to best support our clients right now?
Give me an example of what speed to value would look like.
So we've always said, like, to compare that to like an ISA or an agent with lead generation, speed to lead, right? The first person to answer that call and convert that client, that's the speed to lead. When I think of speed to value, do you even know how to talk about your value? Do you understand what it is? So getting really intentional of who is it that you're serving? Are you specializing in first-time home buyers? Are you specializing, like I see Wes line of sight, he is conquering the investment world, right? He is really clear on who his ideal type of client is. Dan is amazing working with builders and a handful of things that he's great at. That's your only.
Quick, name them.
No, when you look at that, it's that when you understand the value that you can provide to people, the quicker you can understand that, the more successful you can be. But how many of us have just been wandering around saying like, I provide all this value and I'm here to help everyone. We may not be the best person to help everyone.
That's good. Okay, Claire, what was your biggest aha you took away?
Yeah, so there was a speaker at the CEO Summit named Jason Dorsey, and he runs a marketing. company. And his was probably the one that like, I really had to go to the bathroom and I was like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
it was really good. It was really good. I thought he did a great job, but he talked a lot about marketing trends and even the difference in how different like generational groups of people like take and receive information. And one of the things he said that parenting is the #1 trend shaping our generations. And it's because our, the coming generation is learning from the generation before them. And he also mentioned something, a little other like tidbits along with that is real estate is one of the only industries that crosses all those generations. So you can't just be specific to one, right? And a lot of times, I'm a great example, right? I'm buying a house. Well, my dad is very involved in that and he thinks about things differently than I think about them. And so, Carrie, who's helping us with it, right? She has to work with both of us and it's a little bit different to work with both of us. And so that's one thing. And even when we're lead generating or marketing, right, it's got to cross all of those generations. And then he also, the second biggest trend is technology. And technology, he said, is only new if you don't remember, if you were born without it. So like our kids, right? My kids are 5 and 9, they don't know a life that you can't video call somebody. That's not new technology to them, right? It still feels really cool to us, but that generation growing up doesn't remember a life without that kind of technology. And so that'll be interesting moving forward.
So think about the real estate world right now. How many people are getting licensed today? And they never knew that there was a lawsuit before now requiring you to have a buyer's consultation to get buyer's agency paperwork, right? So now we are in a different generation of realtors. And I thought it was such a fascinating presentation. So I would really encourage mikesnotes.net to go over the generations for Jason Dorsey. It was phenomenal. And I was just mesmerized by all the information. Like when he said baby boomers and how they dress with like this blue suit and like 4 seats down was this baby boomer in a blue suit and he was like looking around like, what? He called me out, but it was so wonderful.
I have the 2-page handout that he had us download with all of the notes word for word in that, if you guys want to scan it.
And even walking through why he dressed the way he did.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Can I say a follow-up to that? So that was one of my favorite things, but here we do the KPA and we look at the DISC and we're looking at ways to relate to people based on their personality type. But we need to take it a step farther and look at the ways to connect with them based on how they were raised and who they are within their generation. So like I think it was Gen Z, you can't look them in the eye, they don't trust that. But Gen X, I want you to look me in the eye or I don't trust you. I think you're lying to me about something. So now we have to, and so that's why it's gonna be important to catch these notes because you need to know all these facts so that when you're communicating with people, but also not just the agents. There's buyers who have never bought before, who aren't gonna know that there was a lawsuit. They're not gonna know it's different. So we're thinking it's so scary to go into a new market with new rules, but there's people out there who are not gonna know it was ever any different than it is today.
And how many older clients have we talked to that they haven't bought in 20 years? They're like, this was even before the lawsuit. They're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I'm like, okay, I see people who haven't bought or sold in, the last 5 years, they're not going to think anything of it. They really don't even question it is what we're finding.
Yeah. Which goes back to Monica's point of how do you convey your value then and being able
And
to
it looks
actually-
different per generation. And so if you're really focused on who it is you're helping, are you also focused on what generation they are? And are you communicating the right message to the right people?
That's good. Okay, so Claire, what was one specific action item or strategy that you are planning to implement immediately after Mega Camp?
Yeah, so back to the CEO Summit, Gary Keller kicked it off, him and his entourage of people, right? But he talked about toughness. He talked about mental toughness, physical toughness, and how just like you would go to the gym to build muscle, like toughness is a muscle that we can build. And I've already started implementing some of those. I have things going on in my personal life that probably hit a little more home than other things. But one of the ways to build your mental and emotional toughness is doing things like gratitude. I kind of took one verbatim a little, I think being honest with yourself and other people, like how are you feeling? Things like that. And nurturing relationships. Those are the 3 takeaways that I'm implementing to build that toughness.
Monica, what about you?
truly the entire, I mean, all of my notes, like I said, led back to the speed to value, but when I thought about that, I took that with my team, with our clients, and with my family. And so I added in an extra piece there. And with the toughness, and when you layer all of that together, there was a section in there that said, where are you dribbling where you should be passing? And I loved that one liner, because I look up and I'm like, a lot of us are control monsters. We know that about ourselves. And is that holding us back in the value we're trying to offer everyone around us? And so work-life balance is a real thing for a real struggle for most of us. And so where should I be passing so that I get more time with my family? And do I understand the valuable time with them, what that even looks like, or with my clients or with my agents? The other thing that I will say that I have not talked about that I'm immediately implementing is we learned a lot about AI and how to actually be using it. There were 4 or 5 different platforms that were talked about. I'll spit them out to you really quick and you can look at them in your own time. One was Opus Pro, OPUS Pro. That is a program, basically you can upload long content into, and it will create video clips for you that have captioning, all of that. The next one is Descript, DESCRIPT. Similar, the differences in those two is Opus is AI makes clips for you. Descript, you partner with AI to make the content you want. Another one, we all know ChatGPT, but what I learned is we're all using it incorrectly. So you actually have to train ChatGPT to work for you and work like you. So asking it to ask you 30 questions about your business, re-uploading your answers, and continuing that trend until it learns who you are. In a matter of 15 minutes sitting next to Dan, I took our entire cold lead buyer plan, put it inside of ChatGPT after I had done this exercise, asked it to rewrite it. It came up with things I had never even thought about. Attachments I needed to add it. It asked me more about the generations I was planning to work with. And it truly made it very intentional. So immediately what I've been doing is looking at the gaps in our business and saying, where can I leverage AI right now to provide the value, since that's the keyword I'm focusing on. And it has been like game changing.
Love that. Amy, what about you? What are you executing or implementing in your business?
Well, so I had kind of already started down this line and through this process before I even got there, but it became much more clear to me that I was on the right path. So for me, knowing that this is a market where we've got to new skills that we may not have, for me, choosing to join a team was the right choice for me. I've taken myself as far as I could go on my own. Now I need somebody else's experience, somebody else's knowledge. So I would encourage all of you, if you're not on a team, to look at getting into productivity coaching and look at getting into MAPS coaching. Find that person that can help you grow your skills. Because if we're gonna go speed to value, we've got to increase our value. We have to know our value proposition, figure out where your gaps are. Because if you're missing a skill, you're missing a piece of your value.
Love that. Okay, last question. What was one insight or trend discussed that you found valuable?
I think for me, it was the generational.
Generational?
Yeah.
Okay.
That idea that we've got to learn to relate with people where they're coming from, who they are, beyond the personality type, but to the generation.
Okay, great. Monica?
I think if I were to use the word trend and think about that, consistently in the coaching calls I've been on and the masterminds with the coaches, something that keeps coming up that I keep thinking about is winners only feel like they're winners when they cross the finish line. And that's that idea of winning and partnering that really hit home with me. And I think everyone's experiencing that. Like we run to the next thing, we hit the goal, we don't really enjoy it. And then we're like, oh, now what, right? We think we know what we want. And at the end of the day, we look up and we're confused about what it is we're doing, what our worth is. And I know consistently what I'm seeing and hearing is that it's that not a lack of motivation, like people are excited and they're motivated, but they don't understand why or what for. And they're really focusing on this other area. And so, when I looked at that, Gary talked about the journey and the sprints and identifying that. I think we also have to understand what the word winning or success or any of that even looks like before we even break down value, before we even break down what we want.
Claire?
When I saw that question, what kept coming to mind is things that they've already talked about, those speed to value over speed to lead. And, when I, I've been doing this for what, 7 or 8 years now, and you get a call, right? You call somebody from a database and they want to buy, they get approved in a week and they meet with you, they find a house in a week, they're under contract. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, that sales cycle is just taking so much longer now, and that value piece is gonna keep coming up. I even talked to a lady yesterday that, she's working with somebody and she's like, Claire, she just opens the door, like she doesn't even have information about the house. And that value piece is gonna be more important, like when you talk to your buyer and you're telling them what they're paying you for your services, like you better show up like you're worth the amount of money that they're paying. And even staying engaged with them, that value piece will continue to come up.
Would you pay yourself for the level of value and
Yeah.
service you're providing
That
to
is
your clients?
always my favorite question to ask. When someone's feeling frustrated on the team or we're dealing with a stressful client or challenging one, looking at that and saying, am I even providing a service or value that's worth this massive amount of money that they're paying me? Because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, we're here to serve them. And we're also here to serve our agents. Like, as operations, the agents are our clients, along with our clients.
Awesome. Thank you. What I'm really hearing is survive and thrive, find the motivated, communicate and understand your value, toughness, and understand the generations that you're being helping with. So, awesome. Thank you. Carrie and Sam, if y'all want to come up. Okay. So we're gonna run through the same questions. Wes, what was your biggest aha from Mega Camp?
Wow, that was fast. Yeah, it fits in my pocket, so I just carry it around.
Mini notebook.
Oh, thank you. Good pick there. Thank you. My biggest takeaway from Mega Camp was don't expect it to get easier right away. And then because of that, and you guys have just heard all of this, but I guess kind of asked me to speak more from a team or team owner perspective. Really getting back into the business. So one of our temptations as team owners is when times are good and there's lots of transactions, we remove ourselves from transactions, or we're always trying to. And I think this was a reminder to dig deeper into that. So return to your SOIs, return to the disciplines of my disciplines of cold calling and working with open houses.
Great. Gary, what was your biggest aha from Mega Camp?
I'm a huge Phil Jones nerd, so I think that that's always really, really good. But one of the things I thought that was really interesting, and I think Gary through the years, he really takes a pulse of like what is happening with agents. And so at the CEO Summit, he really dove really deep into stress and what puts you in job stress, what are you really good at, and like talked a lot about depression and like anxiety. And I thought that was so interesting because here you've got your leader who's like, leading Keller Williams as a whole, but he's really diving into something that has nothing to do with real estate. And I really appreciated that. I think that one thing that I've heard, which, I mean, I'm really blunt and straight to the point, so sorry, but I feel like everybody's playing this victim, and I'm sick of hearing people talk about like, this is so hard. Like, it's always been hard. Like 2020 was hard, right? And you had time to prepare for these changes. And so for me, like looking at the perspective, because a lot of it was talking about, the changes that are being made and stuff like that. But, everybody says this is hard. Do you want to go back to taking a listing where you basically can't put it on the market on Friday because then you will have no weekend because your phone's blowing up the entire time and you've got 25 offers and then the agents are pissed off at you because you didn't accept their offer? It was hard. And how quickly we forget what the market is doing. And so just stop being the victim and move forward with the business and do the things that are foundational. Everybody always goes to these things looking for like the sexy secret. And at the end of the day, all it is just being foundational and showing up and doing the work. And it is hard. And if it was easy, everybody would do it, and everybody's already tried to do it. And so the hard just changes. And I think the big thing is like the successes and the consistency And the consistency is just habits, and the habits aren't sexy, right? The people that do the most business are the ones that are willing to do what everyone else isn't willing to do. Because we're not drinking from a fire hose anymore. You actually have to work and you have to build relationships with people. Monica kept talking about value. Well, you know, the success is in the follow-up and the success is in the nurture, and it's what most people aren't willing to do.
My favorite shirt that Gary wore was "Do the work."
Do the work.
That was the motto for the entire trip, was "Do the work."
Well, you're seeing this huge influx of agents getting out of the business because they're not in the business, because they don't know how to do the business and they're not willing to do the business. So, you know, for me, I'm like, yeah, like it's bad reputations, right? Like that's why I'm so passionate about working with buyers. And one of the questions that I asked every single one of them was, how was your previous experience? And when they tell me how bad it was, or that there wasn't communication, like that's gonna be my main focus, is I want them to have a great experience. I want this to be the best experience and to be a client for life, and, you know, to have them send all of their friends and family to me, so.
That's great. Sam, what was your biggest aha from Mega Camp?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of along the same lines, but it was Gary's concept of win the morning, win the day. And bringing that not only on a personal level, like I have 2 very tiny children at home, so winning the mornings a lot for me is not always happen. It doesn't always happen. I have 2 under 3, but then in our business as well, like how can our team win the morning to where they're coming in, they're diving into the region first thing and really winning the day after that. So along the same lines of like putting in the work first thing in the morning when we're at our best.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. What was a specific action item that you are executing, Sam?
Honestly, what I just talked about, winning the morning. So like 2 years ago, we used to do a morning huddle on our team where everybody huddled together. We talked about our wins, things like that. We're bringing that back. So we kind of went away from that with like just life in general. And so we're bringing that back on our team to where every day for an hour, we huddle together. We talk about like how we're going to win the day, win the business. And we have like what we call war boards. So we're huddling at those back to that concept.
What are some of those conversations about winning the day look like?
So like what appointments you on? So we're a very competitive team. And so like what appointments you went on, what new listings you took, what listings went live, so we can play matchmaker a little bit. And really going back to that of like, who set the appointment for you? Did it meet the night before? Like going back to really the one thing of the day and turning in our 4 conversations metrics together as a team so we can see that and celebrate those successes together.
Gary, what are you implementing for Mega Camp?
So it's like a perfect example, right? You know exactly what was working for you,
Yep.
but you got away from it. As agents, how quickly we forget the things that are working for us. I remember Dan, one time I called him about, I don't know, it was about a specific neighborhood, and he was like, oh yeah, we used to farm that neighborhood and we had so many, you know, sales from it and we just don't do it anymore. He was like, thanks for the phone call. But it's true. It's like as agents, we can only live in like 3 months where we're like, we just completely forgot that we had to do multiple offers and how hard that was. And then everybody says, this is hard. It's like, it's just a different kind of hard. You know, not a brilliant answer. I mean, just tracking things a little bit differently. So I think that as agents, one of the things that we get really, you know, we become dinosaurs, right? The conversations that we were having, the scripting that we were having with people, it doesn't work anymore, right? The for sale by owner script that you did 6 months ago, a year ago, it doesn't work anymore, right? Are we constantly changing and evaluating the systems that we have and making that match the market? So, you know, we're really, I've been meeting with Bo and, you know, talking about our tracking, just because the things that we were tracking before don't work anymore. Like we used to do appointments met to appointments signed. Everything has to be signed. It doesn't work anymore. And it's not scalable. So we can't figure out what the hole is whenever we aren't able to track it. Is it a system? Is it a person? Or is like, what do we need to be implementing? And so that has to completely change. And so Claire and I have been talking a lot about what metrics make sense for, you know, non-exclusive to exclusive, appointment met, appointment held, signed. I mean, we're really trying to figure out what that is so that we can figure out how we're winning. And so that's kind of been a main focus for us this week.
And if you don't know Carrie that well, she's big on numbers tracking and data. I mean, it's like a Rolodex in her head of everything that she can remember, but numbers are the indicator of how there's no emotion around it except for the numbers. That's what gives her emotion for it. Wes, what about you? What are you implementing?
So good. I feel like you guys should just talk to Gary, if I'm being honest. So I think right away, my experience in Mega Camp was very much networking based. So every year I go to these, I'm just focusing on my referral partners nationally, who we can connect with, large teams. And one of the kind of resounding comments was agents frustrated with TCs and admin frustrated with agents. And it's like, okay, we all experience that. Even if you're using a third party TC, you experience that. So one of the big things that we immediately implemented was cultivating relationships between not just agent to agent, but agent to TC, TC to agent, ISA to agent, agent to ISA, and really fostering environments where they can communicate well, learn one another. Maybe it is those generational differences or just communication styles. So already our TCs are taking our agents out to coffee. They've got a list of really open-ended questions. Likewise, agents, I don't know if you know this about yourselves, but we love complaining. Like that's what we do. So if a system or something's not working, they end up coming to like, you know, me and complaining about someone else, right? And I'm like, no, we're stopping that. We're gonna go back to cultivating deep relationships with one another. Part of that is that value conversation as well. The customer gets served really well when your TC and your agent are in lockstep in their communication styles and preferences. I think that's super important. One of the big themes I kept hearing from teams was, you know, either the agents exist to serve the TCs, right? So the agents have to adapt to the TC, or the opposite, the TC has to adapt to the agent. And I don't think either of those were correct. I think we have to work together in tandem, and that's going to be one of those ways that we kind of support one another as a team in a hard time. So when we're talking about bringing value from a team perspective to the agents on our team, it's not just dollars. It is also camaraderie, it is culture, it is trying to eliminate little frustrations and then ultimately serve the customer really well in doing so, with the hopes that that returns future business.
Yeah.
So
That's really good. So if I'm an individual agent and I'm not on a team, I'm thinking, okay, well, who do I will build those relationships with?
onward.
Yeah, well, and you know, whether it's a third party TC, but think about your lender partners, your insurance agents, you have the communication, maybe it's handyman, any vendor partner that you ever call and like, hey, I need your help. Those are the relationships you should still work to build, regardless if you have a team or not, because they're still all on your team. Because by you giving them as a recommendation, when you give 3 recommendations or more, then it's their choice and you're standing up for them in that way of saying, these is someone that I would like you to work with.
Yep.
Wes, were there any market insights or trends that Mega Camp that you found particularly valuable?
I think one of the trends that, the roller coaster of team growth, it was fascinating. Again, when I go to these things, I'm really focused on how do I bring value to the team, how do I bring value, how do I better understand what it means to be a team leader. And when the market's really good as an individual agent, we tend to kill it. And your gross commission is higher per transaction as an individual agent. Like we get that, right? But then the market shifts and a lot of the marketing and energetic prospecting happens in teams more. So you start seeing teams carry more deals in bad times. And so you start seeing individual agents, even though their gross percentage per transaction is higher, they start to move toward the team so they can get that networking, that support, and some more deal flow. And so a lot of the conversations I was in is how are you handling that? How are you not diluting transactions by adding too many agents to your team? What are you doing as a team? But then likewise, if the market picks up, are you building enough value as a leader for those people so that they don't feel like they want to just go get an individual agent again? So that's just a really hard construct. I think the trend right now is people joining teams. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I love team agents, like my favorite people in the world. It's what I live to serve you guys. At the same time, we want to make sure that should they join the team, it's win-win at a really high level, not just I survived a hard time. So I think that was one of the things that a lot of team leaders adding people to teams so that those agents can survive and they can maybe pad the stats a little bit versus bringing people on who are gonna someday be a Carrie 2.0,
That's great. Carrie, what about you? What market trends did you find fascinating?
I geek out to, Trey killed that, by the way. I geek out to all that kind of stuff just because I follow the trends so close. I follow inflation really close. I know the Feds are meeting today, you know, I mean, I'm like constantly watching all of that stuff. Anybody that's on my team knows I'm a lunatic about numbers. And like, I can literally say that I know what the inventory was in 2018 at this time and where we are compared to and how many months
Oh, I
of
believe
supply. So I really, really love those numbers and those trends. You know, my main focus, and our team knows this, is, you know, with this whole NAR thing that's happened, I followed it so closely for, you know, since the beginning, whenever it started, you know, August of last year. So I just was paying really, really close to a lot of those conversations because I've been so practiced on it. And, you know, just finding somebody that I can find in a different market, you know, so the Aaron Simons, the Craig Zubers, and talking to them, because I feel like everything kind of happens on the outside and then it hits us. So that kind of was more of my focus, was to have those conversations, because I feel like I'm so well practiced, I can't get an objection that I can't overcome. And so that was kind of my biggest thing, is just trying to find the conversations that could stump me. Aaron Simons did do it.
That's great.
He well, he's your coach. Yeah, he Zuber stumped me and I was like, oh my gosh, hold on. And then, but yeah, so that was my biggest focus, was more buyer trend focused and any type of issues that anybody else is having. Just because you learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, so going along with Wes and then what Monica said, really with focusing on our team, the AI side of it. There is so many cool things, like me and Denver were geeking out after Mega Camp because he's like, this is so cool. And so really diving into that of how can we close some of those gaps as we are growing our team, or really getting like cohesive unit with what AI maybe has to offer.
That's great. So what are, outside of marketing, is there anything else you're using AI for?
Right now, no.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where,
Design. Like I said.
That's marketing, yeah, right now,
Okay.
no, but like just the fact that you can put into AI your entire database. It will scrub it for you and tell you who you need to call that day based off of the notes. Wild.
Yeah. So it's interesting when they went through the generations and they said most people think millennials are tech savvy. And that's actually incorrect. And millennials are tech dependent. So we have to use it. We're not necessarily savvy. And if you're a millennial, the millennials have split into two different groups. And when some people say, oh yeah, millennials are entitled, typically that's another millennial that's in the opposite group saying that about millennials as their generation as a whole. They just don't realize they're a millennial. Yes, Mark?
Sam, what was that about the AI and putting in a database?
Yeah, I'll find my notes where, who said it, but basically he said that you could put, it was Tim Hawley, I think, on stage. But he's
Tim Heil.
Yeah, but he said, yeah, Tim Hawley's like our governor or something like
Tim
that.
Hawley's our name.
Yeah, okay. Anyways.
Josh Hawley.
Whatever. Anyways, Tim Heil said that you can put your entire database into ChatGPT or something like that. Put your notes in there and it will scrub it and tell you who you need to call that day based off of the notes. And it keeps you accountable. So like we're diving into that at a high level of like, what does that look like and how cool is that?
Awesome. Okay. Thank you all so much. Perfect. Melinda, Danielle, and Jason want to make their way up into this. Okay, we have one more panel and then we'll open it up for more questions from what all you have. So, thank you all for your time today. Danielle, this was your first mega camp. It was. How did you like? How was your experience?
I was like telling Mark back there, he was like, how was it? And I was like, well, I feel like I had a different experience than other people because I went like just trying to absorb as much as I could. So my notes are like what people were doing that were winning and how it was surviving for them and like what was working for their database and stuff. And then basically I came to the conclusion that doing it on my own and keep trying to figure out how to do it on my own is just going to keep getting me the same results. So I should just hired the MAPS coach that was amazing.
Got
So I ended
Yeah.
up doing that.
That's
actually.
awesome. Yay, congratulations. So exciting.
That's incredible.
Kimberly, you said? Oh, that's
Yes.
her coach. That's cool.
Yeah, she was so
So
awesome.
what was your biggest aha from Mega Camp? Out of everything that you took, what was your biggest one?
I would have to say for me, it was the big theme for everybody is that they took whatever they were good at, whether that was open houses or events or like, you know, like a gingerbread making contest or whatever. And they did it just really well and did a lot more of it. And you would think in this shifting market with not as much marketing funds that they would have maybe backed off, but they just seemed to just throw more money into it and, you know, just really targeted on their database. And so, and that was giving them the most success. So that was my biggest aha, was just really give back and dive in. I keep waiting, I think, to hit a certain point and then do it more, but like I should do that now.
It's great. Melinda, what about you? What was your biggest aha from Mega Camp?
I don't know if it, you know, a lot of stuff has already been said, but one of the speakers at the CEO Summit was Kendra Hall, and she talks about storytelling. And one of the things she said is the strength of your brand is when your center of influence can tell your story to their center of influence. And that's just impacting our people and doing it at a high level, doing our events, taking care of, just showing how we show up matters in our relationships with our clients and our sphere of influence. And just being the best agent we can be for each person in front of us. So to me, and then sharing that story, like if we don't tell those stories, people don't know. And the best thing is if you can get your clients to tell those stories for you, like that's even the biggest win. So I know that's very foundational, but that's huge. And do the work. To me, Gary nails it. Do the work. Like if we do the work, everything else will show up. And if we are showing up in our, how you show up matters is kind of a theme woven through our team. And if you do the work, everything else will show up with it. The money, the contracts, the people, it's how you show up matters.
And I know you said it was foundational, yet how many of us are guilty of not sharing our story enough? The short story of the wins with the clients, maybe the wins that you have had. I know as a market center side, that was a big thing for us, that we know we need to, and we had this gap. So how do we do it? So I love that. Jason, what about you?
See, everyone brought notes with me, so I feel really unprepared.
No,
So
you're
everyone's
great.
been up here. Yeah.
You just memorize everything. It's great.
That's right.
I would say from two perspectives. So I would say as a MAPS coach, I had it all, and I would say personally, I had it.
Okay, perfect.
As a coach, I have a lot of my clients and really like friends, people that I know that have been on this health journey. And it's interesting, Gary starts every CEO summit with something health-wise. And some connections I was starting to make was, he talked about toughness, but he brought it into the 7 different areas of your life that are into one thing. And even think about like on page 311 of the MRA is the energy plan, right? And so Gary's masterminds that he has with top agents, he always starts with that same conversation. And so I just started thinking about how many people I know that are on this journey and they're maybe they are doing intentionally, unintentionally, or subconsciously or consciously, they're trying to get their energy back. Life's been hard, business has been hard. They realized that they were so focused on business that they weren't taking care of themselves either spiritually or physically. And so when you're not taking care of yourself on that back end, you don't have it in you to fight in those moments you need to fight. And so as a coach, I realized I've got to make sure anyone that I'm working with, that they're taking care of themselves spiritually, mentally, physically, because they're going to need that in those tough moments. So that was my takeaway as a coach. And I'll say personally, to piggyback on what Melinda was talking about, was the storytelling, because the concept itself it sounds so like easy or fundamental, yet just the story she told was so powerful. And I'm going to paraphrase the story, so if I get the details wrong, I mean, don't like go back and read it and say I misquoted it. And they told a story how this study of buying a toy pony for $1, and then they went and put it on eBay and resold it. And they told a story about how this toy pony was their daughter's toy, and by having this, taking it everywhere, it made her, I'm making this up because I don't remember the exact details, but like by having this toy that her dad gave her, it made her feel loved from her dad and gave her all this confidence, and she didn't have it in her to throw it away. So she wanted to sell this to someone that maybe could pass it on to another little girl, that this would help her feel loved and build confidence. And they sold this thing for like $112, I think.
Just by telling a story.
Yeah. And so it just reminded me, you know, Gary says sometimes you need to be reminded of something more than you need to be like learn something new. And it just was such a reminder that, man, stories create emotions, and not just emotions, it creates emotional ties and it creates stickiness. And I think I'm going to pass on him, I'm going to do a better job of telling stories to create emotions, because people, they really want to feel who you are. Not just know, they want to feel who you are, and that's what I got.
That is, I forgot about the pony thing. It was outrageous. I mean, $1 and then they sell it for over 100, but it was just the power of a story. So then as we talk about compensation conversations and, you know, what am I gonna charge on this? It's like, what stories can you tell from the clients that you've helped overcome this hurdle, that you helped get past this tough situation, that they would pay 10x of whatever you're charging just because they want to work with you and the stories that you told about what you've done for your clients. So good, so good. So then Jason, what action item are you planning to implement now that you're back from Mega Camp?
So it's really big. I would say general sense is the MOFR, or message of the moment.
Explain MOFR for people that may not know what MOFR is.
The really short version is, just to simplify it, like really focusing on what message are you sharing with your clients, the public, that's creating urgency now. So what is that message? And I'm gonna say both as a coach and personally, because this last week, I was asking every one of my clients, what are you saying to the people when you're calling them? And I was shocked, because I'm gonna say something and you gotta follow me on this whole trail. Bold teaches us what to say, right? Bold teaches us to, who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? And I think the misconception is that when we learn this, we think that's where we need to land on the conversation. What in reality, I think Bold is saying is we're gonna get you started. That's how you start the conversation. And I think in reality, that once you learn that, then you can start to incorporate it into your own message. So that's what I've been working with clients on. Personally, I would say just really finding what that exact message is. And I know for us, it's through events. They talked about anything you do, make it an event. So like we're having an open house in 2 weeks, and we've got an ice cream truck that's gonna be there. And we're calling through our whole database and inviting them to come have free ice cream on us.
That's awesome. I didn't realize the popularity of food trucks. That was a big message of how many people are using food trucks to help in their business. It's great. Melinda, what about you? What are you implementing into your business?
Definitely using AI, the AI mastermind. I went to 2 while I was there, and to me, that was one of my favorite parts of Mega Camp, is just utilizing AI and all the different tools and resources. You know, it says that AI is a tool, and we are the resource. So we really have to educate it to define what we want. And they came, somebody uses, one of the ladies that was on the panel, she uses the ART method. And it's basically assign ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using to tell what you want it to do, and then use tell it what results you want. So results is the R, and then T is the tone, and tell it how you want it. Do you want it warm and friendly? Do you want it direct and straightforward? Like, you have to kind of create what you want out of ChatGPT or AI. There were several tools. Dan, here's one for you. It's called the Goblin tool. It helps ADHD download everything in their brain and just organize it into task lists, and then it'll.
That's called the Goblin tool?
Appropriately named.
What was that?
It was really good. And then just, you know, Xavier is a tool that will create zaps for you for platforms and talking to each other, but it will also create task lists, and then it'll put it on your calendar. So I thought that one was a really great one too. The ChatGPT that we're all going to use to create scripts and stories, and like utilize it. If you guys haven't used it, I mean, there's so many things online that you can use to just get work started. But you can use it to create your buyer guide or your seller guide. You can use it to do responses for social media or captions. It's just a really great tool. I showed Claire, I said, give me the top 50 questions that a buyer or seller has in the real estate world. And so it gives me that. And then I said, answer these 50 questions for both of them. It gave me the answers. Then I said, turn these into scripts. and it gave me scripts. And then I said, please turn this into a 33 touch campaign for the buy side and then for the side. And it does that. So then you, of course, you have to edit it. You still need to double check it. Does it have the tone you want? What do you want it to do? And it will help you, guide you. So
I like how you said,
utilize
use
it.
please.
Please.
Yeah, please.
I use
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
I hope you all wrote that down because we talk a lot about time of like, how do I find this? Where is this at? You can simply go and create it for you.
Yeah, it's powerful and other people are using it. So if you're not using it, you know, to me also Mega Camp, it just also tells you just stop looking for the shiny objects or the easy button. Do the foundational work, be consistent with what you're doing and make sure you're doing some focus on that. So, you know, like the one thing, if we focus on what's important to grow our business, if it is the campaigns that go out, if it is social media, whatever it is that we are really good at, make sure you do spend time to focus on that and grow that piece because chasing shiny objects you'll just be chasing shiny objects. You won't ever really grow a business.
That's great. Danielle, what was something that you've taken back and implemented into your business?
So for me, it actually boiled down to one of the questions. Phil Jones for me was the guy that I absolutely love. I think I have 5 pages just for him. Honestly, he was great. But there were a couple questions he had us like write or think about asking, and it was, what do you understand about what I can provide for you? But then I took that deeper, like what do I provide? But not just like in real estate and all the things that we all do, but like what do I provide for my people and what is unique and different? Because he harped a lot on the specialization and help those people. And I was like, well, I do so much here at the Legion and all these things. And I was like, why don't I really just harness in on that and what I can provide for veterans, knowing that I know their loans and all those things. And so it really just got me thinking. So that was my biggest one. And I've already started working on different marketing and things to really target that. So that's
great. Done. Yeah, and we heard in the earlier panel talking about like our client load. We're willing to take all these different clients, but are we providing them a service? So if you have a specialty that you have a passion for, maybe it's helping people downsize and you're working with the planner community. Maybe it's in the investing side, first-time home buyers. Maybe you're bilingual and you can help somebody in that way. How can you really focus on that and be the expert in that? So instead of being an expert in like 5 other things or someone in those 5 things, you're an expert in one of those categories. Jason, were there any market insights or trends discussed that you found particularly valuable?
A tough question. I read it when you wrote it. I think I'm going to answer differently than what anyone else has been up here.
Love it. Please do.
The very last thing that Trey was talking about, I wrote my notes and then afterwards they sent all the slides and I went over the slides and I've thought a lot about that because I can't tell you how many times that's been in conversation with a buyer, seller, and other agents where everybody wants to talk about interest rates and everybody has their own opinion of what's going to happen. I like how Gary laid it out and just said, if inflation stays below 5%, then we should expect interest rates to hover around 6%. Unemployment. If unemployment stays below 5%, we should expect rates to hover around 6%. If inflation goes, say 6 to 8%, somewhere in there, then we could expect somewhere between 5 and 6% interest rate. And if inflation goes over 8, then we could expect maybe potentially below 4% interest rate. Now think about the Great Recession that we talked about back 2008 range. We were over 8%, right, of unemployment. So to get back to that, the economy is going to be horrible. So none of us are wishing that, wanting that, and I don't know that anyone truly believes that's going to happen. Maybe we could get into that 6, 7, 8%. That's possible. However, if you look back just the last 24 months, so just 2 years, we went from 3.6 unemployment to 4.3. We've barely moved in 24 months. So to predict it's going to go above that 5%, I don't know that's really going to happen. So I think having that information to give to people, maybe even preparing like a sheet to give to a buyer or seller, just to be prepared because that conversation is going to come up because everybody wants to talk about interest rates.
Yeah, that's good. Love that. Melinda, what about you?
AI for me was the biggest trend of just utilizing it to the highest level, Oh my God. I'm gonna use AI for for running the business and analyzing P&Ls. I'm gonna drop our P&L in there and analyze where are we spending money that we didn't spend last
Ooh,
year.
that's
that-
good.
Like, I'm
That's
gonna,
good.
we have several businesses that I'm gonna also just like, where can we cut costs if we need to, and where would that be? So you can put anything in a spreadsheet to do a pro forma, you can throw in there and just have it analyze it and just let it tell you where can we make some tweaks. So if you want this much profit, what can we do? So I'm gonna dive into that for me personally, but for the other trends of AI, you know, the video, like Monica said, you can literally have it just create the video scripts for you, go do the video content, the video content, put it into that, let it cut reels for you, and then you just implement and have someone push that out. But definitely making sure we're educating people with our content, not just doing trendy content. You have to make sure we're educating people because they need to have you stand out as the expert and make sure that they want to use you because you are the expert.
It's good.
Danielle?
I'm also a math nerd, but she said most of the things earlier, so.
Perfect.
I'd say the biggest one for me is actually what Trey said at the end, and I want to make sure that people caught was that housing usually leads us into a recession, but we also lead people out. And for me, that was just very like comforting to know that like when things start, you know, leveling back out with interest rates, we'll be kind of going out of our housing recession. And the economy isn't in a recession right now, it's really just us. So it just kind of made me think about things a little bit differently. But yeah, no, the numbers definitely support, you know, like a medium recession, not the Great Depression. And that was also comforting to hear because you hear all the bad clickbait all the time. So of course, it's good to see.
And one of the things that helped me get a better perspective was Gary had said, you need a recession in order to have a boom.
Yeah, yeah.
So regardless of where we're at, and if we're wanting a boom, we understand we have to go through maybe some of those valleys in order to have that peak. And so what kind of toughness can we have? What conversations, what community can we build to allow us to navigate that? It's great. Okay, so I'm gonna leave them up here as well, but what questions with 12:30, so we went through a lot in an hour and a half, and thank you all for staying here for 90 minutes. I swear lunch is the key. What questions do you have for our panelists, or maybe some of the conversations we had earlier that we can help you work through? Everyone just nailed it on the head today, right? That's totally okay if so. Do you all feel more equipped, better educated maybe from what happened at Mega Camp, things that you have that you're gonna take away and implement into your business or your conversations? Yeah, okay, tell me one of those things. Someone share, what's something? Yes, Nicole?
I would say AI. That's a very powerful tool that we should start using.
Yep, love that. Yes, Amber?
Yeah, so AI, definitely, I'm gonna go check that out, and then I'm gonna hire a food truck for my next event.
There was like 4
Yeah,
panelists that
that's
talked about
awesome.
it. Yes, Mike?
There was one that does an ice cream truck at every open house.
That's awesome. And they have them scheduled out like 52 weeks out of the year
Yeah.
already, like, yeah.
That's where I got the idea, so we're doing it in 2 weeks.
Well, food worked for this event. I mean,
Yeah.
food brings people together.
If anyone wants to support a local business, my mom has her own little waffle truck that she started doing. She's grinding and trying to get lots of clients, and they're seriously so good. So message me, you can hire her.
Trey?
I think the biggest thing, I'm gonna talk a little bit what I talked about, I'm tooting my own horn here, but what they just said is being the expert in talking to your people and talking to the public that doesn't know anything. Where they're getting their information from is generally social media or news outlets. And their purpose is to generate emotion so that they have you watching them, and they do that by dramatizing things. By knowing what's actually going on in the market and being able to back your opinion up with stats automatically sets you apart, and coming to these trainings sets you apart from everybody else, because most brokerages are not doing this, quite frankly. So just by you guys showing up and all of us showing up and doing this together, and then being able to, sorry for the word, but regurgitate all of that to your clients and to your people, automatically 10x is your professionalism just by being able to spew facts to them.
Maybe you can tie it into a story as well. Carrie?
So I'm gonna piggyback off of that and say that questions are not objections. And don't be defensive when someone's asking you a question. And know the stats and know the data well enough that you can contain the question, contain the objection, find out exactly why they're asking that question. So you're not just regurgitating, vomiting a bunch of stuff that they don't really care about. So if somebody asks you a question, what are interest rates doing right now? That's a really great question. Is there a reason why you're asking specifically about the interest rates? So you're isolating the objection, you're getting really, really funneled into what they're asking, because you don't want to just sit there and be like, well, according to, and do all of the stats that Trey just gave us and went through, because that's not what their question is. Maybe their question is they're asking because they're wanting to get into an investment property. Interest rates are going to be completely different on an investment property than they are on a primary home or a commercial loan. So making sure that you're taking the data that you know and then being the expert and not being the person that's just going to vomit and give a bunch of information that nobody else wants.
You'll put them to sleep also.
Mark?
Talking about what Melinda's speaking on with the AI, ChatGPT. ChatGPT, who's not using AI and they're not using ChatGPT, there are a couple different versions of ChatGPT. And you'll want to use the paid version because it's the most updated than the other one. And then you'll want to, because with 72 Sold, where there was an AI guy that taught us a bunch of stuff probably a year ago. And just have AI with you all the time. Let it hear you in your day-to-day conversations, because it's gonna learn everything about you, and then you'll be able to use that as leverage, and it's masterful how well it works.
Anybody else?
Are there any classes we should implement from anything that anyone is interested in at the Market Center?
ChatGPT, and we've had one,
I am so sorry.
You're
You tell them you're in class and I'll get back.
$5, Lee, $5.
Would you all like to have another AI class?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any other classes?
Can we tell them about the one Stacy Lyons suggested she's gonna try and do next month?
Yeah, so Stacy Lyons is going to teach a DocuSign class on how to send your buyer's agency agreements through your phone quicker, and already have a lot of that information filled out as well. So
Do we have a command class anytime soon?
I'm sure we'll look at the calendar, but yeah, Nicole's normally teaches 2 to 3 every month.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our panelists. It was great.